Alright, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about practicing scales again. So this is the third part in our How to Practice Scales series. And each one of these videos are kind of a breakdown of how I was trained to play scales and how I teach my students. And the point of these different ways to practice scales is that each one builds on each other, and they're trying to reduce tension in the arm and the hand so that you can have more ease and efficiency in your playing. And I've found that these practice methods work really well with my students. So today what we're going to talk about is adding forearm rotation gesture into our scale playing. So this is not as common of an idea. This is how my teacher taught me, and I found it to be incredibly effective. So we're going to start by just talking about what forearm rotation is. Alright, so forearm rotation is this movement where you turn your palm to the floor and to the ceiling, back and forth, this sort of movement. And it's technically called forearm rotation, although sometimes people refer to it as wrist rotation, which is not actually correct. The wrist moves, of course, but the motion is initiated in the forearm at the elbow. So in your arm you have two bones. You have the ulna and the radius. And forearm rotation happens when the radius actually crosses over the ulna and your arm turns like so. So the bones kind of do one of these things. They cross like this and then cross back when we go the other way. The technical terms for this are pronation, where you turn your arms palms down, and supination, when you turn your palms up. So this is a very common concept that's taught in certain kinds of piano playing, like Alberti bass patterns. You can see my arm turning, making those micro adjustments on each note. Octaves, broken octaves, or other broken intervals and whatnot. But we're going to apply this to scale playing, because I think this is a really important concept, especially for the thumb crossing in scales, which is what we're going to talk about today. So there's a couple different ways how people try to navigate through thumb crossings. So we're going to look at a C major scale. I have to play thumb, 2, 3, and then I have to pull my thumb under and play on the other side of my third finger like so, which is not too bad. You can take your thumb and pull it past your third finger, and that feels fine. Your hand doesn't feel particularly tense. However, as we go on in the scale, then we have to play 2, 3, 4, and thumb again. And we have to pull the thumb under here, under 4, and play that C again. And if you try that, if you try pulling the thumb past the fourth finger like so, you'll notice that this thumb muscle is incredibly tight. And you'll also notice that all through your hand there's a lot of tension if you try to move your other fingers. It's just generally stiff. Put your thumb back and try to move, and all that tension is gone. So by this we can see that pulling the thumb way under the hand is going to make our hand tense no matter what. So a lot of people try to overcome this by using a little bit more wrist motion, sort of twisting the wrists like so. So it would kind of look like this: twist the wrist over, and then twist the wrist way over here. Alright, and I'll do that again in my right hand. Alright, what you'll notice is that there's a lot of this micro adjusting going on in the wrist. Now if I play a scale, notice that there is none of that movement. Okay, so there are slight adjustments and movements in my arm, but you don't see that big shifting movement. Because the problem with that wrist turning way to the side movement is that it's not going to allow you to play really fluently up and down the keyboard. So if I do that, that's way too much movement, and it's going to slow me down. All right? So now we're going to talk about how to apply forearm rotation gesture to our scale playing, specifically helping with the thumb. So just like we talked about, that rotation gesture is this sort of movement up and down the keyboard, okay? Which is going to look something like this. If I play, and my hand is tilting, my arm is turning in that direction, which gets my thumb much closer to the next note that it has to play, right? So instead of being here, it's all the way over here, which means that the thumb has to move about that much just like that much movement versus pulling way under the hand. So it minimizes the amount of thumb movement that is required. And it looks like this. And it especially helps when I have to cross past my fourth finger. That feels really easy. Here in the left hand. And a little bit faster. Alright, now I'm going to play in the right hand a little bit slower and exaggerate those movements. So hopefully you can see up and down the keyboard there's this sort of movement. So my arm is micro adjusting, it's helping my thumb to get to where it needs to be, and it also helps my arm sort of shift and move up the keyboard so that my arm is always moving with me, so everything is nice and free and mobile. Okay? So now let's talk about how to practice this. So what you're going to start by doing is turn your arm so that your palm is facing to the left. And again, this is that supination movement. And you're going to play your thumb by turning to the left, like so. Okay, now you're going to play 2 and 3, turning back to the right. So it's this sort of, this movement. Okay, so there's a little bit of movement on each note. Then let your hand turn, continue turning that direction. Go back to the thumb and repeat that process. Turn away, back to the thumb, keep turning, back to the thumb, like so, okay? So again, it's going to look like this. Okay, so at this stage, I would suggest starting really slowly like that and apply that to a few different scales. I'm going to play that on an E major scale and notice what that looks like. And 2 octaves is sufficient for this stage. In the next video, we'll talk about how to then work on that rotational movement in scales without lifting. Alright, so now that we've covered how to add rotational gesture into piano playing, good luck with practicing, and if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And again, this is the most effective way of practicing scales that I've found and has helped me to play with ease and efficiency that I had never experienced before. And before we're done with this video, I wanted to mention a resource, this book, Whatever Pianist Needs to Know About the Body by Thomas Mark. This is an excellent resource that discusses many of these concepts and a lot more. I would highly recommend it. So definitely check this out. There's a link in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.